Okay, good morning, everybody. I want to welcome everybody to the May 27th meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission for the City of Denison. Glad to see you here this morning. It is tradition for us to begin our meetings with an invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. If you would care to join us, I'd ask that you would stand with us at this time. Would you bow with me? Father, we're grateful for another opportunity to come before you this morning as we solve the business of our city. We thank you for the place that we call home, and we ask that your blessings would be upon this meeting today as we do the business of our town. In Christ's name we pray, amen.
Please face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. Before we get started, we'll do a little bit of housekeeping here. The Planning Commission is a recommending body, so on zoning cases especially, those decisions that we make here today will be passed on to the City Council for final approval, which will be held on their meeting.
That'll be June 2nd.
June the 2nd, okay. The plats and site plans that we hear today, our decision on those will be final. When we get to the public hearing section of the meeting, we'll give you the opportunity to come to the lectern. You'll be able to speak either on behalf or opposed to whatever case we're talking about at that time. We are going to impose a 3-minute time limit this morning, ladies, so if you would do that for me. And so when you come to the lectern, we ask that you would give us your name and address for the record, please, and then we'll give you 3 minutes to speak your mind. All right, that being said, we are going to move into item 3, the consent agenda. Let the record reflect that since I was not present at the last meeting, I will not be voting on the minutes. In the consent agenda, please.
I was also absent.
Should we put it on the next agenda?
Okay. Table that particular item? Okay. All right, we'll need a motion to table item 3A until our next meeting. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Okay, so item 3A will be tabled until the next meeting. Okay, the consent agenda, do we have, I need a motion for item 3B.
Make a motion for approval of the site plan on the consent agenda.
That's a preliminary plat, isn't it? Is it? Oh, sorry, you're right, okay.
That's
You're right.
second.
Okay. All right, have a motion with a second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
All right, so 3B. All right, let's move into public hearings. We're going to go to item 4A, and I will open the public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning. The first item I have for you this morning is a request for a conditional use permit in order to operate a warehouse mini self-storage facility on property commonly known as 3109 South Woodlawn Boulevard. This is an aerial view of that subject property on the left, and then on the right is the zoning aerial. The property is zoned commercial, and within the zoning ordinance, in order to operate a storage facility, a conditional use permit is required. Sorry, let's go back to this. So the site is predominantly undeveloped except for an existing structure that's located on the east side of the property fronting on Woodlawn. You can kind of see it from this picture. The applicant intends to renovate this structure to accommodate the office space for the storage facility. The applicant states within their project narrative that the facility will be accessible to tenants 24 hours a day with a camera monitoring system and secured gate access. The hours of operation for the office space will consist of 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Saturday. As the site is predominantly undeveloped. The development of the facility must meet all city development standards and requirements. These standards include but are not limited to screening, landscaping, and parking that are found within Chapter 28 of the zoning code, as well as any codes that are related to building and fire, as well as any applicable design or construction standards found within the Public Works Design Manual and Construction Standards. So landscaping is a requirement. There is a 10-foot landscaping strip requirement along Woodlawn Boulevard. There are landscaping requirements that are required along Maurice Avenue as well as internal landscaping. Screening is required along, I do believe it is the intent that they'll screen the entire property, which is pretty typical for your storage facility operations, but there are screening requirements to the west, given that they're adjacent to a residential zoning district. And then there will be an internal fire lane to allow for access for our fire department. And all of those buildings will be sprinkled as per the guidelines from our fire department. If the proposed conditional use permit is approved, the applicant must submit a formal site plan application, final plat application, and civil engineering plans to be reviewed and approved by city staff. I will say this is the rendering that they have provided to city staff. Now, there are no overlay districts associated with this property, so if the construction meets the minimum standards found within the commercial zoning district, as well as building and fire codes and what Public Works requires, there's nothing really for us to hold them to. However, it is their intention to redevelop that existing structure to provide a visual aesthetics for that structure, and then they will construct metal buildings for the storage buildings. The future land use plan does designate this area to be developed in a mixed commercial manner with a revitalization area overlay. The proposed use does comply with that definition of mixed commercial, and the new construction, given that they have to meet all applicable development standards, will provide the availability for them to meet that revitalization overlay area. Staff does recommend approval of the requests, and I'm present for any questions you may have.
Any questions of staff? Okay. I do have, two letters on this particular case, both of which are in favor of or support the request. And then I have one speaker card. It is for Peggy Gardner.
Peggy Gardner, 2705 West Washington Street, Denison, 75020. And I was curious about this particular site. We have a storage facility in our neighborhood, and it has a brick wall. It's kind of ornate, actually. Alongside of it is some landscaping. And I was wondering, because this is going to be in a neighborhood like ours is, if they could do or would mind doing something like that for this facility, because it really helps the aesthetics of the neighborhood. And that one looked like it was open with metal gate. So I would say, based on what we have in our neighborhood, I would prefer something like that if that were my neighborhood.
Okay. Could you pull the site plan back up, please? Now, actually, I need to see the plat.
So they have not submitted plat or site plan for
Do we have a
this.
survey?
I don't know if it's a
Okay.
part of this or not.
Does this project butt up to any residential?
So they do have residential zoning to the west. I will say along Woodlawn Boulevard, that is all commercial development. It's very minimal, the residential to the west, but there is established zoning, and so the potential for those to develop in a residential manner is probable.
Looks like there's a pretty heavy grove of trees on the west.
I will also say the property that Ms. Gardner mentioned, that does fall within the highway overlay. And so that was a requirement. I'm going to assume, I wasn't a part of that approval, but there is some masonry requirements for that property.
So her residence isn't adjacent or near this location where that was done?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
And I think that they have pretty much satisfied all of our ordinances and requirements as far as landscaping.
They will have to. There will no, right now would be the opportunity to ask for any exceptions or to establish any additional conditions that the Planning and Zoning Commission feels are warranted. But because this is, it's kind of a greenfield project, it was developed, I think, in some sort of auto manner. However, the site is predominantly undeveloped, and therefore they would have to meet all of the applicable development standards, landscaping, screening, parking, as well as any standards that are within the Public Works Design Manual for detention, for fire lane construction, things of that nature. The thing to be mindful of is that there are no material or architectural standards for this particular area because it doesn't fall within an overlay.
Is the applicant here this morning? Oh, yeah, we'll give them opportunity. Those were the actual ones I had that I wanted to go over.
Todd Young, 2026 Peyton Way, Pottsboro, Texas.
You guys are aware of what Ms. York just said, that the requirements and specifications that we're going to ask you to comply with, is that going to be an issue with you guys?
Not at all.
Okay.
We're aware, and I think one of the things we're trying to accomplish is to have a curb appeal that will grab attention for the vehicles driving by, and so we'll want to have a very professional and clean look to it.
Okay. Any questions of the applicant this morning, gentlemen? Okay, thank you, sir. Anyone else here to speak on this request? Yes, ma'am.
Good morning. My name is Adriana Alvarez, and I'm a resident on Maurice Street. So I own the property at 3115 South Maurice and 3129 South Maurice. And I wrote a letter, so I will read from what I wrote. I want to express my support for the proposed request currently under consideration. However, my support is contingent upon the fulfillment of the following conditions, which I believe are essential to maintaining the quality and character of our neighborhood. There are three main points that I would like to discuss. The first one is the traffic management. And I'm proposing that all incoming and outgoing traffic related to the development should be routed through woodland to minimize the disruption and ensure safety within the surrounding residential streets. Number two, the visual screening. By looking at your rendering, it looks like the gate, it's a metal gate that screen the development, but I'm proposing a brick fence should be constructed to effectively block the view of the proposed mini storages from the nearby residential properties, preserving the visual integrity and aesthetic value of the neighborhood. The number three, another important point is the environmental preservation, because there are mature trees currently on the property, and I believe that they should be preserved, as they serve as a vital habitat for a variety of bird species and other wildlife. Maintaining this natural environment is important for ecological balance and community well-being. I appreciate your attention to these concerns and trust that they will be considered as part of the final approval process. Thank you.
Any questions of the speaker? Okay, I think our tree ordinance will kick in on this project.
Yes, so they'll have to submit a tree survey and a tree preservation plan. And if for some reason preservation can't be met, there's a mitigation. It's there's a potential that they could meet the preservation requirements through the landscaping plan that they provide, but we will have to dive into that once all of those applications are submitted, along with their civil engineering plans and determining where they might have to provide detention.
So that answered your question about the trees, that they will have to satisfy our tree ordinance that's in place, okay? Addressing the screening, that will be, when we get to the site plan, we'll have to see as far as screening between the residential and the commercial. That's the only place I believe that screening is gonna actually be a requirement.
Yes, I do believe that there is a significant screening requirement between residential and the commercial use. It does not necessarily say what type of screening, but that it has to satisfy the ordinance. And so if the applicant were to move forward with the proposed screening that they have right now, there's a potential that they would also have to add vegetation.
As far as across the front, based on the testimony of the applicant, that they are going to make sure that the buildings are architecturally pleasing. I think I find advantages to the wrought iron fencing versus a wall. From a longevity standpoint, number one. Number two, from a visual standpoint, it's gonna look better not having a brick wall along the street. I think for security reasons, police being able to see into the site from the street when they're patrolling would be more advantageous as well. So I think the screening between the residential and the commercial is something we'll address at the site plan, and then the protection of the trees will be addressed at the same time. So hopefully that answers your questions.
If it's an iron rolled fence, would it be?
Sorry, ma'am, could you please come up to the
Yeah, I
podium
need
so
you,
we
yeah.
can get this on the record?
If it's an iron rolled fence, would it be possible to have a screening like, as you mentioned, landscape? And if we are able to preserve the mature trees, that will also be natural screening to block the views from the mini storages from the residential side of it?
The screening across the back, because that's where the residential is.
Yes,
is
on the
back.
west side.
That's the only place I think we'll actually address screening issues. As far as the front's concerned, there's a landscape buffer, there's a landscape ordinance in place, and as long as they satisfy that landscape ordinance, then I'm not inclined to ask them to do additional for screening purposes.
If I may interject at this point, because this is a conditional use permit application, the commission has the ability to put that condition on, to make that recommendation, should you feel it be necessary. You're asking for something that we cannot dictate the building material unless the commission makes that recommendation. So that's where I want to make sure we're clear on that. The location that Ms. Gardner referenced falls within a different area of the city that has those regulations. So they had to put that brick wall. This is in a different location, and so unless the commission puts that in place, we cannot require that of the applicant. But they do have other requirements that they have to meet from a screening and preservation, tree preservation and landscaping requirement.
I understand.
But just for the commission, that is what we're considering at this point in time, are those conditions for the CUP.
I understand, but me as a resident on Marie Street, I'm here to express my concern. Understood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Either for or against?
I need to go through the whole spiel.
Yes, ma'am.
Peggy Gardner, 2705 West Washington Street, Denison, 7520020. With regard to the facility that's in our neighborhood that has the brick wall, whether it's comparable or not because of the zoning, I would say that I appreciate having that, and since you guys have the option in this neighborhood, I recommend, or I plead, beg that you do that for those neighbors. This is gonna be here a long time, and since the area is not presently developed, has the option of having homes there. Anyway, I would plead that you do that for those neighbors and the future neighbors. Thank you.
Okay, one more time, if there's anybody else here to speak on this request. If not, I'm closing the public hearing. If there's no discussion among the commission, I'll entertain a motion.
I just have one question for the applicant. There's just going to be one entrance,
You wanna come
right?
back to
It'll be restricted access, and the entrance will be off of Woodlawn, is that correct?
Yes, sir. The ingress point will be off of Woodlawn. We are working out with Diane and the departments on, there is a backside of it on the site, or the conceptual site plan that shows an egress point, but we just need to work through that through the site plan and civil engineering. And I think the goal is to try to keep the traffic, obviously, to Woodlawn Drive on that.
Yeah.
And if I can just address those comments too as well, I mean, our goal is to make sure that the aesthetics of the facility will be as professional and clean looking as possible. We built a local facility in Sherman about 5 years ago, and it won't be quite to that level, but we will try to get to that level. It's called Ace Storage behind the town center in Sherman on Travis Street, and you're welcome to go by there to see what we've accomplished there with our landscaping. And again, we will try to accommodate that through, while we technically do not want to do a brick screen, we want to do something that will show the public that it is professionally run and nice aesthetics. And so with the landscape screening and requirements, along with the type of fencing that we do, which typically we'll do a cedar fence that's either horizontal slat or vertical. That's your standard 6 to 8 foot vertical. We do try to prevent people from seeing inside the facility other than to where the wrought iron gates are that are operational. And so that's another security thing that we try to accomplish. And so again, it goes back to, from the outside of the facility, we want it to look professional with the landscaping, with the type of materials we use, within reason of our budgets, but at the same time, trying to be the nicest we can be.
So in addition to the retaining trees under the tree ordinance, you'd also have a site-resistant fence on the more east, on the west.
So what it'll be is between every single building, we'll have a wood cedar fence that'll be stained a specific color that'll match, whatever the colors of the site are. But it'll be between each building, and so it won't be a complete perimeter fence. We use the buildings as part of the perimeter fence as well, as screening. But in between each building, there'll be a fence, and then again with the where the gates and access are wrought iron.
Understood.
All right. Thank you, sir. Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move to recommend the approval of a conditional use permit to allow for the use of warehouse self-storage at the subject property.
A motion?
I second.
I have a second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
All right. Moving on to item 4B, and I will open the public hearing on item 4B.
Thank you, sir. Second item I have for you today is a request to rezone the subject property, commonly known as 2430 West Coffin Street, from the single-family 7.5 zoning to the single-family 5 residential zoning to allow for residential use. The property in question is approximately a 7.8 acre tract, and the applicant is requesting to rezone to an SF5 in order to create additional lots. Right now, they're showing that this is a zoning conceptual plan. They're showing that they would like to construct approximately 42 single-family lots. I will say that this is just a conceptual plan. They do have to move forward, if zoning is approved, move forward with preliminary platting and civil engineering plans, which most likely will require detention. They do show a couple of common areas for the development, and those will be maintained. All detention and common areas will be maintained by an HOA. Per their project narrative, the development will be constructed in a thoughtful manner. The applicant intends to utilize architectural design standards, additional landscaping and streetscaping that meets or exceeds the minimum requirements listed within the landscaping ordinance, and will also, as I mentioned, create that HOA to maintain any detention in common areas. You can kind of see it here, maybe a little bit better than the other picture. The property consists of 2 parcels that is dissected by dedicated city right-of-way. That is South Bluebonnet Avenue, or the continuation of South Bluebonnet Avenue. The applicant must design and construct the street to city standards, as well as any additional internal public streets, and the connection to existing city streets such as Arapahoe Drive, which you can kind of see from this exhibit. Upon approval of the proposed zoning, as I mentioned, the applicant must move forward with submitting a preliminary plat to be reviewed by staff and approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission, as well as civil engineering plans and final plat applications, which are reviewed and approved by city staff. All applicable city design and construction standards found within the Public Works Design Manual and Construction Standards, as well as any standards that are found within Chapter 22, the subdivision regulation ordinance, must be met when designing and constructing all city infrastructure, so streets, water, sewer, detention, etc. Through the preliminary plat and civil engineering plan submittal and review, the applicant must submit a traffic impact estimate or analysis to aid in determining if additional traffic mitigation is required. Right now, at this time, 42 lots would not warrant a traffic impact analysis, but once we get into the civil engineering portion, one may be required through the review of that process, or through the review of that application. Additionally, a tree survey must be submitted with the preliminary plat application, and then a tree preservation plan and any necessary mitigation requirements are required at the time of final plat application. The proposed development is subject to assessment and collection of impact fees and park dedication fees. Both fees will be assessed at the time of platting, with park dedication fees being collected at the time of final plat, and impact fees are collected at the time of building permit. The future land use plan does designate this area to be developed in a neighborhood manner. The request to rezone the property does comply with the future land use plan. Staff recommends approval of the request, and I'm present for any questions that you may have.
Okay. Any questions of staff? Okay, is the applicant here this morning? No? Okay. All right. Anyone here would like to speak concerning this request? Either for or against?
Good morning. My name is Robert Mears. I live at 2401 Caprice Avenue, which is the corner of Caprice and Coffin, and I am here to ask that you do not approve this. I'm Mr. and Mrs. Eldridge are my next door neighbors. They've lived there. I've lived there since '92, and we are opposed to this for several reasons. Number one being that one of the main gas pipelines for the city of Denison sits on Coffin Street, right behind my house and right behind their house. And our understanding is that there's 800 pounds per square inch of gas comes through that pipeline. There's a vacant lot right across the street from it that nothing can be built on it because that pipeline runs, we were told that pipeline runs underneath there. All it takes is one person on a backhoe in there digging to hit that pipeline, and we've got a major problem on our hands. We are opposed to it, one, because of that. The second reason is Coffin Street is barely wide enough for two cars to meet each other on the road. And there's chipping off on both sides of it, and sometimes you have to wait when you're meeting a car because you can't pull over far enough because there's nothing there but a drop-off. There's no speed limit. There's a hill right where the gas Atmos plant is, and my driveway backs out onto Coffin Street. And there's been several times that we have nearly been run into because when you look and there's nothing coming and you go ahead and back out, people are coming over that hill at 50, sometimes 50 miles an hour or more. There's no traffic signs that says no speed limit signs, and it's really dangerous sometimes. And I know what was said about the traffic study. If you're going to do this, that I would please do a traffic study to see what the situation is. That road needs to be widened to mount the traffic. Ever since the houses on Park were built, our traffic has doubled sometimes, maybe even tripled. Now that all the construction is going on 75 and the roundabout that was built there at Loy Lake and Coffin, our traffic has increased and it's gotten worse. And we're just asking that you take a look at all of that. And again, I'm here representing Mr. and Mrs. Eldridge as well. They're opposed to this, and I am too. Thank you for your time.
Okay. Questions from the speaker before he leaves? All right, thank you, Mr. Mears. Anyone else here speak on this request? Yes, sir.
I am David Schindler, 2605 Arapahoe Circle. I fully concur with the previous speaker on all of his comments. Many of the comments that were brought to your presentation have been addressed, but not all of them. I'm concerned about restricting the lot sizes to half the size of what are neighboring lots, and that's going to affect the value of all those properties in that neighborhood. I'm very concerned about them developing that plot as proposed. Some of it is flood prone. I understand that it may be a possibility that they'd extend Arapahoe Drive, and the city would have to abandon their easement that divides the two pieces of property, and that would create more traffic. Now, on the concerns of the traffic on Coffin Street, yeah, there are many times that two vehicles can't pass. They have to pull over and yield right away. That happens a lot. I travel that street a lot. There is a lot of traffic, and a lot of times it's impeded. So traffic is a concern. I am also concerned about flooding with the additional lack of terrain absorption. There's going to be more runoff. There's more runoff already. Sometimes during real heavy rains, the waters that the creek feeds into will actually go down to the spur and limit the access to the spur. And this is evidence of soil that is washed over the roadway. And this could cause us concern for the fire department in that area having access to the road also. So the flooding there should be addressed. And I appreciate the fact that y'all will do a traffic study. And without knowing the exact plans for the property, it's harder to further commentate. But I also feel like if you reduce the required lot sizes to half the size of a normal lot in that area, it could open this up to the additional 18 acres to the west of that property. And then all we're going to have are mini homes and mini lots. And I'm really concerned about the value of the homes around that.
All right, thank you, sir. Any questions of our speaker? Okay, thank you, sir.
I respectfully ask that, I don't know if you received my letter
We
or
did.
not, but I do respectfully request that you reject this request. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, I'm gonna close the public hearing. So a lot of these items that have been addressed by speakers are items that are gonna be dealt with later on down the line, should this project continue. I think today we're basically discussing zoning. And they're asking for, a decrease in the lot size, which is, I know to address the issue of with the value of the home because it's on a smaller lot. Doesn't necessarily hold true. I think it just depends on the quality of the product that's built, which is an item that'll be dealt with as we proceed. But just because a lot's smaller than the lot next door doesn't mean that the house is gonna be less expensive. So that's, I'm having a difficult time agreeing with that particular argument. As far as traffic, the traffic study, all that's gonna be resolved as we move forward, if they choose to move forward with this. I think everything that has been expressed with the flooding, again, hydraulics will be studied with the civil engineering. The gas line, I can assure you that appropriate measures will be taken with Public Works when construction starts to see to it that that line does not get to be, punctured or tampered with in any way. So all those issues are gonna be dealt with later on down the line. So, that being said, if there's any discussion among the commission, if not, I will entertain a motion, on this item.
I just wonder if it would be appropriate to table this until the applicant is present to discuss some of these concerns.
I do agree with that.
Yep, I'm not real happy about the fact that the applicant wasn't here this morning. There may be circumstances, but on a case like this one, he should have been here.
How big a house could be built on, what is it, a 5,000-foot lot?
Well, your actual building pad on that lot, we have, our minimum would be a 5,000 foot, would be a 50 by 100. Now, these may be bigger.
No, that's correct.
It'll
So
be 50 by 100.
your SF5 is a 5,000 square foot lot. The minimum, per the ordinance right now, the way that it reads is the minimum house size is 950 square foot. So there is the parking is different than the 7.5. It's a one-car garage or one-car carport with one additional space in the drive.
Do we know anything about what the developer would propose to build?
So in their project narrative,
Or are they gonna sell the lots to?
Sure. So in their project narrative, they do state that they want to design the homes to be architecturally sound, along with utilizing the two-car garage requirement and the two-car minimum to accommodate the parking. The only deviation from the 7.5 standard that they are requesting is the reduction in the lot size. Please keep in mind, though, that this is not a planned development. This is a straight rezone to the SF5. So if they come through for the plating and they come through for the permits, if they are meeting those minimum requirements, then that is what staff will approve.
So, I mean, we could table it. To answer your question, the product on Blue Bonnet, those are on 50-foot wide lots. Those particular houses, air-conditioned footage, they're about 1,480 square feet, three-bedroom, two-bath with a two-car garage. And those houses are gonna appraise right at $300,000 is what that's where they're gonna come in, somewhere in that neighborhood. So I figured this will be a comparable product.
It isn't the same developer?
No,
Okay.
no, I was the developer on that.
Or you?
So you're familiar with that.
Yeah,
Yeah, that one I'm familiar with.
okay.
But no, I mean, and of course, the market changes, but that's pretty much where that product has come in, so.
Just from a square footage, footprint size, that's what you.
From what I'm hearing from some of the builders in town, that they're building and selling anywhere from mid 190, 195 up to about 205 to 210, just depending on where the houses are in that. So that's kind of where you're going to be. And we haven't seen anything, architecturally. I mean, obviously the city has no control over what they build the houses out of, so that's immaterial at this point. So, but I'm certainly not opposed to tabling it and then have him come back and be here to answer some of our questions.
Would the commission like to table the item to the next P&Z meeting? That would be June 10th.
I would like to make that motion that due to the concerns raised today, that we table this to the next meeting, and hopefully the applicant will be present to address these concerns.
Okay.
Chair, I have a question. Would you like to reopen the public hearing?
We probably
Table?
should.
Okay, if you could just include
Yeah,
that in your motion.
yeah, include that in the
Like to
motion.
reopen the
Yeah,
public hearing
that way they
and
can
vote for
speak on it when we come back to the next meeting. So
Okay.
add that, reopen the public hearing.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
No, sir.
Will we
No.
get another letter
Not-
for
not-
that?
Not at this point. We're handling it. Thank you. Okay, you will get another letter. No, we won't. No, we've already advertised once. That's all we have to do. So make a mental note that it will be on the June 10th meeting. Okay?
Okay. Would like to amend the motion to include the public hearing aspect.
I second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Okay, so we've tabled item 4B. June 10th, okay? Got it? Okay. Item 4C.
Thank you, sir. Item 4C is a request to rezone approximately 10-acre tract of land located at along Randall Lake Road, commonly known as 2700 Randall Lake Road, from the agricultural district to the single-family SF10 residential district to allow for residential use. This is an aerial view of that subject property. The reason why the individual is coming in to rezone the property is due to the restrictions found within the ag zoning district when it comes to subdivision or subdividing the property. They are wishing to create these two proposed lots you see here, one of which, the proposed lot 2, I'm sorry, I'm going to flip back to the other screen. You can kind of see there's a single family or an existing single family structure located on what is proposed lot 2, and they are wishing to retain that while at the same time creating an additional lot for residential development. The agricultural zoning district does not allow for the subdivision of this property. They wouldn't meet the minimum width requirement found within the ag zoning district. Staff, through the review of this proposed plat you see before you, staff did recommend that a rezoning would be required in order to subdivide the property, and there is SF10 located along Randell Drive to the north. That would provide a significant lot size requirement consistent with some of the parceled out homes located in this area. The area does, the future land use plan does designate this area to be developed in a neighborhood manner. When you get closer to the corner of Randall Lake Road and 75, the future land use plan does support commercial or mixed commercial development. However, staff's interpretation of the future land use plan for this area is a neighborhood designation. So staff recommends approval of the request, and I'm present for any questions that you may have.
Any questions of staff? Okay, I have 1, 2, 3. I have 4 letters of opposition to this request. Make note of that. Okay, is the applicant here this morning? Good morning.
Ella Solomon, 2700 Randall Lake Road.
Okay.
So we are requesting to rezone our property. I purchased this property about a little over a year ago to keep this for family. We have 2 boys. We thought we will be coming, every weekend to spend time there, and frankly, we don't have time, unfortunately, but we love the property so much. We'd like to rezone it and sell the portion that is residential, where we currently have a big barn, and then keep the land itself for future use, for our retirement. Currently, we have 7 beehives, so that larger portion is agricultural exempt, but for the barn, it's the property tax for it is about it's evaluated for $600,000, but just for the small little barn. So that's a little bit strenuous to pay taxes for that little property. So we'd like to rezone it and sell it.
Okay. So we're just gonna build one house on this? Is that,
We're not building anything. We're just keeping the land.
but it's not big enough to develop into a subdivision, correct?
Well, it doesn't have the zoning to support a subdivision at the
Yeah,
moment.
we will keep it just as a land.
So the, I'm sorry, go ahead.
The agricultural, the bigger portion of it, the
So
7
you're
acres.
selling lot 1.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. The barn.
And then lot 2,
We'll keep it as is, with 7 beehives.
okay. So we're 7.5 acres roughly on lot 1, so it is big enough for development.
We're also changing a septic tank in our barn because it's an old septic tank. I'm not sure if you've received information on that.
And what are your plans for lot 2? Nothing?
I'll be honest with you, in the past, we had a big plan for it. Right now, we don't have time nor finances for it, so the plan is to keep this for our retirement. If we ever build anything, it'll be just one house for ourselves. So we're looking into 10, 15 years from now.
If I can, the ag zoning district requires, I'm sorry, I just had it pulled up. It requires that there's a minimum of 1 acre with the 300-foot width along the front. And right now they have, it's about 550, 570, somewhere in there. Yes, so they would not, with the zoning that they have now, if their intention is to subdivide and then sell the portion off, the agricultural zoning district does not support that. I will say also, the project narrative states that this is a residence, a single-family residence, not a barn. So that would be an accessory structure, and there are some complications with that when you come through for plating. It doesn't have any effect on the zoning right now. You could still, if the commission wants to recommend approval of the rezone to allow for the future subdivision, then that'll carry on to council
We
for
have no
final
plans.
action. I'm
We have
sorry?
no plan. We no longer have any plans to do subdivision.
Well, subdividing your property is creating the 2
Gotcha.
lots.
Got it.
I will say that it is a little misleading from the project narrative that that's a single-family residence when it's actually an accessory structure. And so you may have to request variances when you come in for plating. So that is something to be mindful of through, if the rezoning is approved.
Okay, thank you. Do you have any questions for me?
Any other questions? No.
Thank you, thank you.
Anyone else here to speak on this request? Okay. All right, seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing.
Charles, you say you got letters opposing?
I got 4. And only one of them gives us any kind of reasoning. Yes. Oh, I was just talking to Anthony and Larry. Okay. So, I mean, I think that's what I'm kind of confused about is, looking at the future of this. Do we have any utilities out there?
Well, there is a sewer line, and I think that's a water line that goes along Pecan Gap Road. It's kind of hard to see through here. There would be easements that would be needed. I think a sewer extension would be required if they were to develop, as well as other improvements. Randall Lake Road is not in the best condition. And so all of that would have to be taken into account if the property was developed or were to be developed.
I was just curious if they wrote letters, what, did they state an objection?
Just that this district was more industrial in its as-built form, and that a subdivision being developed there could present problems, which I'm not necessarily in disagreement with that comment. I mean, I think utilities and streets and I think if somebody wanted just to buy a big tract of land and, you know, put a house on it and run some horses or something like that, then it probably would be ideal. But I just don't see a future right now as far as a development for it. But again, that may not be the intention. So, okay. Anything else, guys?
Would you want to open the public hearing for individuals to speak on item?
I haven't closed it yet, have I? Yeah, you did. I did? Okay. So we can't talk among this commission?
No, you can talk amongst yourselves.
Yeah.
It was inviting individuals to come up and speak.
Someone else who mentioned they wanted to speak, but you had already closed the
Oh,
public hearing.
yeah, okay, yep. Did they do it after I closed it or before? Okay, just making sure. Okay. All right, I'll entertain a motion, guys.
May I speak?
Ma'am, I've already closed the public hearing. I gave opportunity.
I don't hear well.
Okay. Chris, can I reopen it for one? All right, do you guys have any objection to, all right, so I need a motion to reopen the public hearing.
I so move.
Second.
Okay. Baylor, okay, you can come in.
I'm sorry, I do not hear
Oh, that's
real
fine,
well.
that's fine.
And I am representing some of my neighbors that could not be here
Could
today.
you give us your name and address for the record?
I'm sorry, Belinda McKee, 2408 Randall Drive. We all live out there and have around 10 acres, and we like that peace. That's why we're out there. And we're just afraid if this gets started, that there's going to be another piece of property that's going to be for sale, and more, houses will be, they'll be requesting more houses. And, we're out there because we love our land, and we don't want the traffic. The roads are horrible. I've lived out there since 1980, and the roads are just horrible, and the traffic, we just oppose it. And, that's all I can say right now.
Okay. Any questions of the speaker? All right, one more time. Anybody else want to speak on behalf of this? All right, I'm going to close it again, this time for good. I understand where they're coming from with being out there and not wanting to see development. Unfortunately, progress is something we can't stop. But under these circumstances, it'd be real expensive to develop out there right now, the way that the conditions are out there. So I don't foresee anything anytime soon being developed. That's my personal opinion. Obviously, this is kind of a strange one, but Anyway, I'll just leave it at that, and I'll entertain a motion if you guys have one.
I move to approve the rezoning of the property to allow division into 2 lots.
I'll second.
Have a motion with a second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
All right. So that one will go on to council on the June 2nd. Okay, June 2nd, all right. Item 4D, we'll open that public hearing.
Thank you, sir. Item 4D is a request for a replat creating Block 1, Lot 1R of the Blake Utter Ford Edition. This is being a replat of Lot 1 and 2, Block 1 of the Blake Utter Edition, and replat of Lot 2, Block 2 for the Westgate Edition, Section 5, Phase 1. This is an aerial view of the subject property, and then this is the proposed replat. If you recall, I believe it was the meeting on April 22nd, the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval for a site plan for a maintenance, part maintenance building located kind of along Ansley Boulevard, and that was for Blake Utter, or for the Blake Utter Ford operations. At that time, it was staff advised the applicant that they would have to move forward with a replat prior to obtaining any kind of building finals for their building permit for that structure, and so that replat is, or this replat is the required replat that staff mentioned to the applicant. Accessory structures cannot exist on their own property. They have to be a part of a main dwelling or a main structure. And given that that was an accessory structure to the existing new car lot, replat was required. There is access to the property by way of Ansley Boulevard as well as US 75. The property is split zone between the commercial zoning district, with that being the location to the north, as well as planned development for the property or the parcel to the south, all of which falls within the highway overlay. Staff does recommend approval of the replat, and I'm present for any questions that you may have. The applicant is not here.
All right, any questions of staff?
I have a question, staff.
Yes, sir.
Going by and looking at the property, it looks like there's a temporary building out front. Is that a permanent temporary building? Or
That is
for
to
the
house,
construction?
yes, sir, I do believe it's for the construction. They are currently remodeling the existing car room, as well as some of the building, the maintenance facility area, and so that structure, or that temporary building is to accommodate just daily operations while they're going through the remodel.
Okay. It was just larger than usual for temporary.
It has to hold a lot of people.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, anyone here to speak on this request? Okay, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
I move to approve the proposed replat.
I'll second.
Motion with a second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Okay. Moving on to item 5, individual consideration.
Thank you, sir. The item I have for you is to hold a discussion and take action on a site plan for the 7 Brew Coffee. It's a drive-through restaurant located on the north side of FM 120. This is the aerial view of that location, as well as the zoning aerial. It is zoned commercial, and it falls within the highway overlay. The reason that staff is bringing this site plan before the Planning and Zoning Commission as an item to consider individually rather than on the consent is for a few exceptions or variances that the applicant has requested, 2 of which staff is not supportive of. These are smaller lots that were taken down by a previous, or a developer with previous staff. And so there are some constraints that staff is aware of, and exceptions that can be made. One in particular, if you look at the north side of this property, the northeast side, there's a dumpster that's located within the landscaping area. That's unavoidable. There's just nowhere else to allow for a dumpster. Two of the exceptions that the applicant has requested are along the FM 120 frontage, where staff has tried to hold our development standards to, where we've given some leeway along Pottsboro Road, and this is from the civil engineering staff as well as planning staff. We are trying to hold our ordinances and our developments, or design standards and construction standards to these developments. The applicant is requesting an exception to the front or the landscaping strip that's required by the highway overlay for property that is adjacent to other streets than the US 75. That minimum landscaping requirement is a 15-foot landscaping strip. They are proposing a and I'm sorry, I don't have the dimensions in front of me, but it's approximately a little over a 4-foot landscaping strip in order to accommodate the parking that you can kind of see there along FM 120. Through the review of this site plan, staff has asked for the reasoning for the parking. The parking does exceed the required parking per the ordinance. The zoning ordinance requires a minimum of 5 to 6 parking spaces for a facility such as this with the square footage of the building that is going to be located on the property. They are providing 13. And so staff has asked if there is an opportunity for a reduced parking along the front of FM 120, and we have not been provided any reasoning behind the need for all of those parking spaces. It is possible that some of those spaces are going to need to stay, but staff does feel as if there is opportunity to extend that landscaping strip or maneuvering it in a way that provides a more visual aesthetic look, and that meets the ordinance and is mindful of the ordinance that City Council as well as the Planning and Zoning Commission were a part of passing. Additionally, there are shrubs that are located within this landscaping strip, so there are no trees that will be provided. It should be noted that the developments to the east have accommodated that 15-foot wide landscaping strip. However, their sites are a little bit bigger and their configuration of the sites are different. Every development is different, but please keep in mind that they are meeting that 15-foot landscaping strip. Additionally, there is a requirement for the sidewalks to extend from property bound to property bound, and that is something that they are also requesting an exception to. Please note that the site plan approval does not constitute civil engineering plan review approval, and so while staff is not supportive of that, and we want to make the applicant aware of that as well as the Planning and Zoning Commission, they must meet the construction standards, and sidewalks are required from property line to property line, and there is, based off of the conversation I had with our CIP and engineering manager, there is opportunity to reroute that sidewalk, but just like the other developments along that corridor, the sidewalks will be required. So essentially, staff is asking that the commission consider approving the site plan as it meets all other development standards that are provided within the ordinance. However, trying to meet the landscaping requirement along the FM 120 frontage. A 4-foot landscaping strip is not very big. And so staff approves or recommends approval of the site plan. However, determining how we can meet or get as close to that landscaping strip along FM 120 is imperative.
Okay.
I'm present for any questions you may have. And that the applicant is here as well.
Any questions of staff on this yet? Okay, the applicant would like to come forward?
Yes, sir. Jake Rizzo, Citadel Development, address 555 Bolton Marble, Denison, Texas. So a couple things, but I apologize, I thought we got you the answers on those. So the sidewalk extension, we're able to do, we looked at that again. We are working with the developer on how we can do that. The grading was a little different, so we had to figure out how to get make it ADA compliant, but we are able to address that
looking at the site plan, one of the things that I thought we might possibly think about would be to take a parking place off of each end of that row that's facing Morton Street, and increase those landscape areas on, I guess that would be the southeast and the southwest corners, and then get our tree. What's the width of this lot?
I can't tell from the
Yeah, I
site
can't
plan,
tell
I'm
from
sorry.
It is 78 feet.
Okay, so 78 feet, 2 trees should pretty well, wouldn't 2 trees suffice as far as what we want in the landscape buffer? 11 spaces would give you more than twice the required amount. And then I wouldn't be as, have objection to the 4-foot buffer as much as I do right now. You know, understand that Morton Street, you know, we're spending a lot of money redoing our downtown. And Morton Street's probably gonna be that's the route coming in from the lake to get into the downtown area is Morton Street. So it has been the city's desire over the past, well, since I've been involved with the city, to improve the image of Morton Street as quickly as we possibly can. And you guys just happen to be on the beginning of that. So I think we're pretty concerned about making sure that we're gonna hold to our standards and create what we wanna see on Morton Street. Now, I'm all for, you know, business and, you know, and so I mean, I'm not saying the rest of the commission would wanna do that, but I mean, we can visit with staff about it, but I would be maybe agreeable to seeing us do something along that line.
Yes, sir. Yeah, we can certainly accommodate. And as far as the, you know, we spoke with the neighbors about maybe some cross parking, and unfortunately, they were kind of in the same situation of, you know, we're limited on space. The Whataburger, I believe, said that we could do it, but they were like right on the threshold of how many parking spaces we needed, I believe, so we weren't able to come to an agreement. But I definitely hear your concern. We can certainly look at that, and be able to, I think we can eliminate at least one, on that other end. There's, I believe, a little bit of a landscape buffer there as well, on the, I guess it'd be the southeast corner. So if we're able to pull one on the southwest and place a tree there as well as one on the other side, we can even look at like where the ADA path comes across.
I think you could leave it pretty much where it's at. I just see the space on the east and on the west side. If we could take those 2 spaces and create you know, that adds another 9 feet to the width of those landscape buffers there. So that would give us enough room that we could comfortably plant trees in there and not have to worry about the root systems. And so, I mean, that's just a suggestion. I'm not saying that the rest of the commission would agree with that, or staff may not agree with it either. But that's something I would entertain possibly as a means of compromise. Any questions? Y'all have any questions?
I agree with
Yeah.
that.
Anything else y'all have questions?
Is that something we would address in the civil engineering plan?
So I would ask that you make that motion now, with that requirement, and then they'll resubmit their site plan, and we'll make sure that when we, review it, the conditions that you place on it are met, and then they'll move forward with civil engineering plans if they haven't already submitted them.
One of the things is, the building is pretty much a modular building that's going to be assembled on site. Is that correct? But it says that it'll receive third-party inspections on mechanical, electrical, plumbing, structural prior to leaving the manufacturing facility. Since our building officials here, we will be doing inspections on site.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and the walls are, so it will come, kind of addressing, I'm sorry, just want to make sure you kind of understand how the building is. So it
Anything else, guys? Thank you, sir. So I'm taking it that the dumpsters, there's no other place to put it, so we're just gonna have to deal with that.
Correct,
as
yes.
As it is.
Yeah, and as I mentioned, Pottsboro Road has been kind of the frontage where we have, I guess, reduced our own standards. There's no sidewalks along Pottsboro Road, things of that nature. So along Pottsboro Road, there are no issues. We've all come to the conclusion that this is the area where we can give in on those standards.
Okay, so number 2, we're okay with that. The escape lane,
That has been confirmed by the fire marshal.
so he's okay with,
Yes, so per the ordinance, if they have that double lane, one of those serves as the escape lane.
okay, so we're good there. He addressed the fact that they're gonna go ahead and work out the sidewalk and connect it.
Yes,
So
sir.
the testimony there, so we're good with that one. So basically, we just need to, decide what we wanna do on item number 1 as far as the landscape buffer is concerned. Okay, so what do y'all think?
I'm thinking we're okay on the east side, but I do think we need to have some additional on the west side.
Now, that east side, are you gonna have a sign in that east side landscape area?
Yes, sir, yeah, there's proposed, I think it was a
Monument sign? Okay, so are we gonna be able to do the monument sign and a tree as well?
I'll have to look at, I'll have to dig into the sign ordinance, and kind of make sure that, we'll probably have to lose another parking space if we want both. More than likely, the client would probably remove the monument sign in lieu of making sure we can get parking there. So we could do a tree on each side if we remove that monument sign.
Could you accommodate your monument sign and an ornamental tree versus a,
Yes, yeah, we should be able to. The monument signs are really big.
right? Are you,
About this size.
thank you. Does the commission have any issues with an ornamental tree being located in that particular area?
I have one question. Is there signage on the building?
There is, yes, sir.
So the monument sign is not an absolute necessity?
It's not, no, we like it just for, obviously, more street presence, but it's not required.
Well, the thing about a monument sign, especially since you're gonna have to landscape in front of those head-in parking places, it's gonna get lost in the landscaping eventually anyway. So, but that's not my call, but, so y'all just wanna remove the one space on the west side, and that would put them down to 12 spaces, and then allow the 4 foot along the parking area? Is that what I'm hearing from the commission?
If I can live with it. But as I heard him, they got a minimum parking requirement at shift change. And
But I think I heard him say 11 would be a minimum.
We could make it work with 11.
So this is gonna give them 12.
What's staff recommendation?
So my recommendation is different than what your recommendation is going to be.
They're gonna want that 15-foot landscape.
And please understand that that's my job. My job is to uphold the ordinance and to enforce the language that has been approved by the city council. However, I do understand the constraints that this property has. And please also understand that this design for the allocation of these lots, that was, while we approved those plats, that was done prior to us through a developer and other staff members. And so trying to be mindful of the bigger picture, if we had started with this project, we most likely wouldn't have these constraints. We do, how do we make it work? I think there is opportunity to add the tree, as you have suggested, and losing a parking space. It would be ideal to do some sort of vegetation near the landscaping area, or where the monument sign is gonna go. I struggle with whether the monument sign is needed or not. I don't know your business and your operations, and so I don't want to, state whether we would want it or not. But 4 foot and not having any kind of remedy or discussion with staff is why we're kind of here today. So if we can come to a conclusion where we're losing a parking space, but we're extending a landscape island to support a tree of a minimum of 3 inches in caliper, then I feel as though that's a win. I just have to make sure I can justify it to the other developments where I did require the 15-foot landscape strip.
And that's why I think personally, I think we need a tree on both corners.
Okay.
Because then we've satisfied the requirement for the 2 trees that would be required if we had a 15-foot buffer. Am I right?
So the trees that are required, I think there are the trees that are required within that landscaping strip planted 30 foot on center, if I recall correctly. And then there are requirements for trees every 15 parking spaces. So I think that you would be meeting both of those.
We had 2 trees, and we pretty much would satisfy our landscape ordinance with the exception of the depth of the buffer, which I'm not overly concerned about that. That's just gonna wind up being grass anyway, but, you're gonna landscape in front of we have to, so that 4 foot, we're gonna get landscaping in that, and we're gonna actually get our trees that's the important thing with the landscape buffer, in my opinion, anyway. So, you might lose the monument sign, but you got signage on the building. It's a cool looking building. What are your hours of operations gonna be?
I believe I apologize, Phil, while I think it's 5:30 to 10.
Oh, good, so they'll be open, cause I tried to get a cup of coffee last night at another place and they were closed at 8 o'clock and I wasn't overly happy, so I'll be a customer. But anyway, I think I'm okay with that if y'all are. We can send that to council to see if they're okay.
It won't go to council. It'll stop here.
Oh, it stops here?
Yes,
Oh,
sir.
that's right, site plan.
Yes.
That's right, okay.
So just please make sure in your motion that you provide the applicant and staff guidance for when they resubmit.
Did y'all hear that in your motion? Okay. So if you're good with that, then we'll go ahead and proceed? Okay, thank you. All right, gentlemen, I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve the proposed site plan for 7 Brew Coffee drive-through restaurant with the following conditions. The landscape requirements are met for FM 120 frontage, which would include 2 trees in the landscape area in front, and also pending civil engineering plan review.
Let's amend that just slightly. If you make that motion, he has to do a 15-foot landscape strip. So
Okay.
I would, if, Mr. Sylvester, if you don't mind, I would conditionally approve it based off of the reduction in the parking spaces that you talked about and with those 2 additional trees. And just make sure that's the consensus of the commission, please.
Okay. Please submit my motion to include the additional parking spaces and a 4-foot frontage for landscaping requirements.
Should we have been more specific than that? Because we're deleting one of those spaces, that needs to be in there.
Yes, please. Yes.
I
So,
think it needs to be a 4-foot landscape buffer with the addition of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 spaces.
so if you're asking, and I'm sorry, I don't like feeding the motion to you, but I would, if it were, based off of what the sound, or what we're talking about.
Close to lunchtime, go ahead and feed it.
I know, I'm sorry. If we are wanting to reduce the parking space on the west side of the property along the frontage, I would say that you are conditionally approving the site plan with the reduction of 1 parking space on the west side of the property, allowing for a 4-foot landscape strip along the FM 120 frontage with 2 trees on either end of that landscape strip.
Do you have that? So moved.
Ditto.
Second.
Second it? We good? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
All right. All righty, let's.
To make you aware of the denial of the Parkway Bend, or the residents at the Parkway Bend, it was a planned development that came before the commission. Mr. Chair and Mr. Co-Chair, I don't believe you guys were here for that one, but Mr. Stamphill, you were here. That was denied at council. So the applicant, the city council shared all the same concerns that the commission did when that was brought before the commission for recommendation. The garages extending past the main portion of the dwellings, traffic, the parking, the reduction in parking, the alley, reduction in the alley access, or obsoleting that. So it was denied. And so that particular project or that property cannot come through for another rezone request for 6 months. So they can retain the current zoning that they have. However, if they wish to move forward with any additional rezoning, they have to wait that 6 month period. But I do believe we had another item that went before council and it was approved, but that one was the significant one and it was denied.
When is our next meeting on design criteria? When is that meeting?
We don't have one scheduled.
Oh, I thought we scheduled one.
No, sir. No,
Okay. All right, just checking.
that's all that staff has.
All right. Well, that being said, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And seconded.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
We stand adjourned at 11:23 a.m.